Just going to say a few quick words about what we do. So normal product design is about making products that people like that'll help your company's bottom line. For action design, what we do is we use the intersection of design, UX, technology, psychology, economics, and help create products that will empower people to change their own behavior, whether they want to save money, lose weight, learn a new language, that sort of thing. So we've had a number of fantastic speakers, and tonight we have Chris Daggett from Ideas 42, and who I will let Steve introduce. Thanks.
Hey everybody, Steve Little from Hello Wallet. Abby has introduced the group, so I just wanted to do very quickly thank our sponsors for tonight. Tonight we have Ideas 42, of course, I'm the speaker. Chris, do you want to say a little bit about the organization? This is separate from the talk itself.
Sure. My boss, Josh Wright, is supposed to do this part, but I'll do it.
Oh, Indy's here.
He's here. Ideas 42 is very proud to sponsor this by presenting you with this wonderful speaker we have tonight. He's a handsome, smart guy. I'm very excited. My name is Chris Daggett. I work at Ideas 42. We're a behavioral science consulting ideas lab. We're based out in New York. We're really proud to be a part of this event, and we're going to share with you some of the insights that we've sort of gleaned over the years from working with our partners. Additionally, we are a growing firm, so for those of you who are interested in Ideas 42, I also lead recruiting, so please reach out to me and happy to get you into the process.
Cool. And I should say that our previous co-organizer, Eric, joined Ideas 42 and left us. So, there you go. So it is a well-trodden path, please take it. Actually, he is just started up a new group in New York. So we now have a Action Design New York, and also one other brief announcement, we've just crossed 1,000 people for the group. Okay? And that's just for the VC group, which is by far the largest group of this type in the country. San Francisco, 800. Come on. So, having introduced the core concept, do we have any other? Oh, Hello Wallet is a sponsor tonight, of which I work, so I should say that. Hello Wallet has covered the empanadas tonight. Hello Wallet provides unbiased financial guidance. We have another Hello Wallet here tonight. And we are also hiring, I think we have 15 different positions, Matt? What do you think?
20 or so?
Something like that, 20, I don't know, a lot of positions open. We just signed some big contracts. So if you're interested in joining us, working on financial guidance, working on the application of behavioral econ to helping people take control of their lives, please come talk to me or come talk to Matt Garza, who's over there getting himself a beer right now.
Water.
Okay, water, of course. Of course it's water. And with that, I should say, Chris, so much short-sold Ideas 42. It's not a behavioral econ shop. It's the largest behavioral econ shop in the country, and it collects and brings together the best researchers that we really have. Okay? I mean, they have the Sendo Molitanen, Eldar Shafir, I think Taylor's associated with you guys as well. Basically, most of the big names in behavioral econ are affiliated with and help support the good work that they do. And they work with government agencies, they work with nonprofits, they work across the country, helping them apply behavioral econ to their products and to helping people change something about their lives in a meaningful way. And so I personally have always looked to Ideas 42 as an inspiration in how this field can adapt and grow and professionalize over time. From just a few very cool researchers in academia to some very interesting books to now putting it into practice into everyday lives. And I think it is the work that Ideas 42 is doing that is probably going to have the largest impact that anyone in this field is going to have by touching projects all across the country who then touch thousands of users, hundreds of thousands of users, and hopefully more over time. Helping them exercise, helping them use their health insurance, helping them, etc. And so Chris will talk a little bit about their methods tonight. Thank you.
Great. I was trying to keep expectations low. Thanks very much for that. Okay, so usually when we do this talk, I sort of start off with a case study in consumer finance. Usually when I do this talk, I'm also doing it with a lot of policy folks. It's a little different crowd. Valentine's Day is coming up, so instead I'm going to start with a personal story, my experience using Tinder. Yes, the dating app. Don't judge me. So Tinder, for those of you who don't know, is a dating app, and the way it works is you sort of have this app on your phone, and you can pull up a profile of a potential mate. So if you're interested in that person, it's very simple, you swipe to the right. If you're not interested, you swipe to the left. Now, if you swipe to the right for somebody and that person also sees your picture and they swipe to the right, you have a match. So when there's a match, you kind of see like this match. And then at that point, you can actually communicate with them. So if there's no match, you can't communicate with anybody. It's also double blind, so you can't see if somebody liked you as well. So the other night, I was using Tinder. And now some of you in the audience might be very judicious with your decision as you're looking to swipe to the right or right to the left. For me, the way I use Tinder is I basically just like keep swiping to the right. So probably like 2 hours into it, after I've gone through half the ladies in New York City, I get a match. Now, not all matches are the same, especially if you're using it the way I'm using it, right? Like you don't know what you're gonna get. So this match, however, was good. It wasn't only good, it was amazing. It was like the best match I've ever seen. And as I pull up this profile, this girl's just gorgeous, she's perfect. And then I scroll down and I look at our shared interests. One of the features of Tinder is it shows like interests that you both share on Facebook. So I'm looking at it and there are 4. One is American Economic Review, TechCrunch, British Medical Journal, and Buddy the Elf. This is the perfect girl for me. So I'm ready to propose to her, but that would be awkward, especially because I'm the communications guy. So I start off with like, hey, we'll call her Jane. We'll just say her name's Jane, just to protect her. Hey Jane, like, you know, how's it going? And she replies with, hi Chris, your profile picture is so cute. And so let me show you the profile picture. You know, I'm like, hey Jane, you know, like I'm so excited we share an affinity for elf culture. I'll spare you what happens over the next 30 minutes, but needless to say, like the conversation goes really good, and I get to a point where I got to do something. So I ask Jane, you know, hey Jane, let's get coffee or drinks. And there's silence. Like we had talked for 30 minutes about elf culture and sharing pictures of us in our elf costumes, and now there's silence. So 10 minutes goes by, and I'm like, oh, whatever, Jane's not even that attractive. 20 minutes goes by, she's probably not even into elf culture. 30 minutes goes by, an hour goes by, I'm like, my mom would never even like her. Our baby's really ugly. I would never date Jane. Bing! Hey Chris, sorry, I just got the subway, just got your message. I'd love to go for drinks. It'll be my treat, you choose a place. Jane is amazing, I love Jane! Why am I telling you this story? Because there's a takeaway in here that I think is very important. It's one that I forget myself in my personal life, which is that you never want to assume people are receiving our communications. This is a conversation I have with every partner I work with. If you think about it in the realm of consumer finance, sometimes we're working with folks that are trying to get somebody to make the right financial decision, whether it's pay off a debt or enroll in a 401k. And as I'm talking to them, they're like, well, we're going to send this letter in red ink, in bold, because we've already sent 2 letters and they're ignoring us. Are you sure they received the communications? An example with Jane, I assume she received the communication. I assume that she just didn't want to talk to me anymore. I started calling my mom and saying, Mom, you're wrong. Not every girl does love me. I started just going down this rabbit hole. So with our clients and with our partners, we're constantly reminding them that you don't want to assume people are always receiving your communication. The reason why it's important to have this assumption is once you take that off the table, it starts to open your mind as to what's really going on, and accordingly it opens you to different solutions. So in our talk today, I'm going to share a little bit more about what that actually means. If you forget everything I say, that's the one takeaway you should all be mindful of, because it's something that I forget every day. Cool? Okay. So, as some of you may have gleaned from the invite, this is based off of our behavioral audit. So this is a framework we've put together, working with some partners. You're not getting everything that we have in our behavioral audit. That's going to cost you some money. Well, we're giving you a good chunk of it. So honestly, I can't share everything within half an hour. So what I've tried to do is take parts of it, put it into a checklist, So it's something everybody here can kind of take and run with. And additionally, all of you do bring your own expertise, right? And so you might have ideas on how to add to this checklist, and I'm very interested in that conversation with everyone here. Like I said, a lot of the times we're working with folks from a policy standpoint. So very rarely do I get the opportunity to work with folks that are coming from a design standpoint, that are bringing expertise, the folks that are in this room. So curious to have your reaction from this as well. So to get started, how many of you work in communications? It's either in your title or it's one of your responsibilities. It's a safe place, don't worry, it's cool. Yes, most of us. So one of the most unfortunate things when it comes to communications, when we tell people we're doing communications, they think it's about PR. They think we're writing letters or editing emails or that sort of thing. It is. But the objective of today's talk is not to teach anybody how to write letters or how to do PR. This is really about how do we influence behavior. So when we're thinking about it in the context of some of our colleagues from Low Power, yes, it's communications, but it's about how do we get people to save energy. We're thinking about our colleagues from Hello Wallet, yes, it's communications, but we're thinking about how do we get folks to do the things that they want to do when it comes to their personal finance. Everybody here wants to save money, but not all of us are saving money, right? So how do we get folks to do what's in their best interest and what they want to do when it comes to personal finance? We're thinking about our colleagues from Blue State Digital that are here. We're thinking about how do we mobilize a vote? How do we get people out to vote? So this is not about how to write a PR press release. This is really about how do we influence behavior. That's what we'll be talking about today. Okay, so the first sort of section of the checklist is around timing. I was at Walmart a couple weeks ago and I needed paper towels. There's an interesting thing that happens if you go to Walmart at the beginning of the month. If you go down to the paper towel section, you'll see that the paper towels come in bundles of 3 or 6. It's a lot of paper towels. That's not that interesting. If you go 3 weeks later towards the end of the month and you go to that same aisle, what you'll find is that same paper towel is not in a bundle of 3 and 6, it's in an individual pack. There's a reason for that. Walmart knows what we refer to in our discipline as the paycheck cycle. Our income is not static, right? All of us in here, whether you're making $1 million a year, you're making $20,000 a year, your income fluctuates, it goes up and down. As money comes in, money goes out. Walmart recognizes that, and accordingly they change what's on the shelf to be able to reflect what you can actually do. So the takeaway here is that the paycheck cycle affects behavior at a high level. In the case of Walmart, it affects how you purchase and what you're able to purchase. If you're living paycheck to paycheck like many Americans, you might not have money to buy that 6-pack bundle of paper towels, but you'll have money to buy that 1-pack perhaps, and that's why they changed that. What does this mean for us when we think about timing? There's a lot of folks here that work in the consumer finance industry. When we think about timing, when we're asking folks to do something, whether it's pay down a debt, or enroll in a 401k, or contribute to the college savings plan that they already opened but they haven't been contributing to, you're asking someone to think about finance. If we know that people don't always have money, what does that mean for us? Think to the last time when you didn't have money and you received a bill in the mail. What did you do? Did you open it? Probably not, right? You put it to the side. You say, I'll deal with that when I have money. Because it's painful. It's painful to deal with. You might open that bill and it says amount due, but what it's really saying is like, you are a failure. Your mother doesn't love you. You don't share an affinity for elf culture. It's yelling at you, it's screaming at you, and that's why we don't want to look at that. So as bills come in and you don't have money, you don't deal with it. So when we think about timing in terms of what type of things we're asking people to do, in the realm of personal finance, we want to be mindful of, okay, well, what does the financial situation look like? If we know somebody has more money at the beginning of the month than at the end of the month, it's probably better that we send that type of material at the beginning of the month. That's the first takeaway, something to think about. Next thing on timing. So this is from a notice. As you can see, the notice date is February 16th. What's due is 10 days later. almost 10 grand. That's a heavy ask. I can't turn that money around. I wouldn't be able to turn it around in 10 months, but that's a heavy ask for 10 days. Some people might be able to. So probably not enough time to actually turn that around. And the question is, well, then what's the right amount of time? There's a study done by academics, and what they did was they sent out surveys. So just like A/B testing, it was a randomized controlled trial. With one group, they sent out a survey and they gave them $5. They said, hey, turn in the survey, complete it, here's $5. No deadline. Another group, they gave the survey, $5, here's $5 up front, turn this in 3 weeks. Another group, they gave them the survey, $5, your deadline's in 5 days. Think about what group you think had the highest completion rates. The first group, no deadline, 25%. The second group, 3-week deadline, 42%. The third group, 5-day deadline, 60% completion rate. So the takeaway here is we never want to give people no deadline. We don't want to give them too much. We want to give them just enough. The 5-day deadline was appropriate here, probably wouldn't work here, right? It's a big ask. So we have to kind of know the folks we're working with. But the thing to be mindful of is you don't want to leave it open-ended. You don't want to give too much. You want to give just enough. Okay. So the next sort of set of snags we want to focus on is how do we make communication personable? What we have here is the case with the Oregon healthcare system. So in this scenario, folks applied for healthcare, low-income folks, and they entered a lottery, basically. Some win, some don't. In this case, this is what you receive if you win. So you entered for healthcare, you won. You actually get free healthcare. This is what you receive. It's a nice photo, right? I like clouds. They're holding hands, they seem happy. But if you receive this in the mail, it doesn't really break through the clutter, right? You can't. This just by going to trash. So one of the things we did in Ideas 42 is we redesigned this notice so that it's a little bit more personable. So this breaks through the noise a little bit more. It's an authentic photo. There's nothing photoshopped about this. You look at that, and that actually happens to be the people that you will contact when you win. This is the back side of it. There's some behavioral stuff edited in the text. I won't go over all that. It's a little bit deeper there. But the one thing I want to draw your attention to are the photos. So in this case, if Fanny on the left was actually sending out this postcard informing the person that they had won, she's going to circle her photo. She's going to handwrite her name. There's a study that substantiates why this is a good idea, and that's why we put this design element in there. Professors had sent out an email, and they basically said, please complete the survey. So one group just got the email and the survey. Another group gets the email, the survey, and it comes with a photo of the person who's sending it. The group that just got the survey, 58% completion. The group with the photo, 86%. So this is why we do this. It's just one of the methods that we use to try and make things personal. Okay. Another way to make things personal. So this comes from a case with inter-office communications. So in this scenario, a manager sort of distributed surveys to the employees. One group gets the survey, and it's typewritten your name on there. So it's like Jane, and it's actually in font. And it says, Jane, please complete this. Second group gets the survey, and it's handwritten. So Jane, please complete this. Third group gets the survey, and there's a Post-it on it. It says, Jane, please complete this. Think about what you think worked best. First group, 25%. Second group, 38%. Fourth group, 75%. Third group, 75%. So the takeaway here is the post-its are a good use to try and make things personal, but it also engenders a sense of reciprocity. When you see somebody's taking the time to actually write a post-it, you get the sense that I need to do something here, right? So this is another method that we use to make communications personal. My boss is in the audience, so just... All right, so one more we've got under this category. Some of you, I imagine most of you, many of you, received emails like this during the Barack Obama campaign. I like this one because the subject matter says, the last time I'll ask you this. I've probably received about 10,000 emails since. But the objective of these emails are really to kind of gather donations, right? So, anybody have any clue as to what email, or rather what the subject said in the email that sort of gathered the most donations? Okay. Yes. I would expect a lot of you designers to know this. What was this one? Subject just said hey, right? It's so easy for us to go into email and then figure that we have to summarize the header, right? The subject matter. And then this one actually got the most donations, the most open rates that you would infer from that. There's something cool about this. One, it's personal. It almost feels like something you would get from a family member. There's also something mysterious about it where you have to know what it's about. If it said, hey, Chris, please donate $5, I would never open it because I'm not going to do that. So, something to think about.
Chris?
Yes?
So, what did people who advocate for long form direct mail say about this email? So, there's long form copy.
Sure.
Like, there is a huge school that says that if you want to sell something, write as much as you can, actually like get it very personal, very emotional, and supposedly that's better, but this works much better.
Correct.
Sure.
So I'm going to go a little bit through some other instances of communications in terms of how you architect certain information. So we'll get to that part. And then after the talk, if I haven't answered your question, throw it at me again.
Okay.
Okay. So this was done out in Germany, eye tracking research. This is probably not news to too many of you, but this was sort of looking at how do people look at letters. The interesting thing here is not that it's up and down. You can imagine that you're going to scan it from the top to the bottom. That makes sense. So you start off sort of seeing where it's from, who it's addressed to. But then look, you go down, right? This is what most people are doing. They see who it's from, who signed on it, and then before even reading the text, they're looking at the postscript. So something at Ideas 42 that we love to do is we always put all the important information in the postscript. we play games and try and trick each other and just hide it there, because we know that like you're actually going to read that. So rather than putting the most important thing in like the first paragraph of my emails, I often throw it in the postscript. So something to think about. This again shouldn't be news to too many of you folks. It's just basically how we read information. You sort of go in this F pattern, scanning from the top to the bottom. The important takeaway here though is that sometimes when we write emails or we write communication, it's easy to assume that the reader's going to read everything or that we have their undivided attention. And we're not. Like chances are someone's reading the email you sent while they're driving, while they're doing Tinder all Friday night. Like you're not going to have them captive. And so you really want to try and summarize everything you have to say in the first paragraph. Because you're going to lose them. You're going to lose them once you get beyond it, right? Okay. So this is from a tax notice that I received, just for research purposes, of course. I'm a criminal. But what I've done here is I've sort of clipped out all the next steps from various pages. So the notice itself is 7 pages. I took next steps from many different pages, and you can see it's really, really confusing. None of this stuff is numbered. I really don't know what to do. So the challenge here, when you have so many things going on, like they say football is a game of inches, Like, as you're dealing with decisions and actions, it's a game of seconds, right? And every second I'm asking you to focus on this, think about it, think about what to do. That's just another opportunity for me to lose you. So this is an example of how not to do something. Here's a better one. The Behavioral Insights team, a cabinet-level organization in the UK government, worked with their tax organization, and what they were able to do is redesign tax notices. And some of the takeaways that they found in their experiments are, one, you want to summarize all the next steps on the first page. Anytime you're trying to ask somebody for something, the worst thing you can do is bury the next steps on subsequent pages. You got to get the next steps on the first page. The second takeaway is you want to try and put that on the right side of the page when it comes to the next steps, so it's very clear. So where we had next steps scattered throughout 7 pages, we now have it all on one page, all in one section on the right side of the page. Very clear. And then in the Nudge Unit, UK behavioral science team found that this worked most effectively. Fonts, disorganized information. This is an actual email. I had to block out some things. I'm sure we've all received emails like this. First thing, when everything's like bolded and colored, like nothing stands out. It's just a mess. So the takeaway here is you want to use your bolding very carefully. 2/3 of this email is bolded. When it comes to colors and fonts, blue and red sort of engender a sense of authenticity with folks more than green and yellow. So we know that much. So you want to try and use those fonts, but use them smartly. That's probably all I want. Again, I could talk for hours about this particular email, but those are the takeaways you want to stay with. Hassle factors. This is another category. We'll show the full checklist at the end. With hassle factors, what we're really talking about is, are there snags that are going to prevent you from acting quickly and efficiently on something? Could be anything. Like I said, it's a game of seconds. In this case, AGI. This is jargon, right? Most of us may know what AGI is, but not all of us do. And so anytime you use technical terms that might make sense to you but not to everybody, that's just another chance where you're going to lose them. Somebody might look at this and say, okay, I was going to do this, but I don't know what that means, so I'll deal with it on Friday when I have time. And then Friday rolls around, I'll deal with this on Sunday when I have time. And then that time just never comes. So we always want to be careful when we use technical terms or jargon. That can just create a hassle factor, and it will cause people to procrastinate things that they might otherwise not do. Okay, I don't think everyone can see this from back there. So what this is an envelope. And you can see there's a little text note in the place where a stamp goes, and it says, place stamp here, post office will not deliver if there's no postage. That's great. Like, it's a reminder that you actually need to put a stamp in. Good, right? This one's better. It says, don't have a stamp, pay your bill online. Verizon does this. How many of you have Verizon? You can see. But what they've done is they've actually taken a step out of that process, right? Because if I say, place stamp here, it's good, it reminds you to do that, but where are you going to get a stamp? Like, stamps are hard to find. It's a pain. And so what they're telling you is they're foreseeing that. They know that that's a hassle factor for you, and they're saying, you know what? Don't worry about the stamp. Pay online. So they're funneling folks into that channel. Very smart. These are the type of things we want to look at. Go ahead. So I'm going to show the checklist after this. This is sort of the last case study. This has to do with financial aid forms. Most of you, I imagine, have filled out the FAFSA before. It's a lovely little document. This FAFSA is not a lovely document. It's a large document. You have to fill it out to get financial aid for college. Okay, this is a process that folks have to go through. There's an interesting problem in this country in that many folks who are eligible for financial aid don't actually ever fill out the form. Maybe they don't know about it. maybe they didn't finish their taxes in time, you need your tax information to fill it out. Maybe they just think they're not eligible for financial aid for whatever reason. So this is a problem. When you have folks that are eligible for financial aid, they're not filling it out, that means they're not going to college perhaps, when they should, or when they could, when they didn't think they could. So this is a problem. Some academics got together, they partnered with H&R Block, and they wanted to see, were there ways to help folks fill out financial aid forms. So what they did was, with one group, for folks that were coming into H&R Block and finishing their taxes, with one group they said, here's some information about the FAFSA and why it's important to fill out. With another group, they said, we've taken your tax information since you're here at H&R Block, and here's estimates on the financial aid that you could expect to get if you fill out the FAFSA. Kind of helpful. It kind of addresses that bottleneck of some folks that might otherwise feel that they're not going to get financial aid. There's this third group, and what they did was they were able to put software in place that would automate the transfer of all the tax information into the FAFSA form. So if you're at H&R Block, they give you your tax forms, you're done, and they say, by the way, most of the information on the FAFSA form actually relates to the tax forms that you've just filled out. So we've done 2/3 of that for you. No work done. To fill out the rest of this document, I just need 10 minutes of your time. I'm going to ask you questions, and I'll fill it in for you. You want to take a guess on which one worked best? So the last group had an 8% increase in FAFSA completion and ultimately college enrollment. That's significant. That's millions of students a year that otherwise might not have gone to college. Well, why am I telling you this? Because all of us deal with this sort of problem every day wherein we have to figure out how much customer service can we really give, right? All of us would agree that customer service is a good thing. That's not the challenge. The challenge is how much can we justify? How much resources can we put to this? H&R Block could have easily stopped from the beginning and said, oh, there's no way we could never help anybody, right? But they didn't jump to the solution right away. And what they found was they could actually automate a great deal of it and won't cost them anything. So when we think about solutions, when we're trying to figure out how do we get people to save, how do we get people to vote, how do we get people to save more money, we want to think about how to help people in a certain way. And this was a great example of doing that. They recognized that filling out the FAFSA was really painful, and just sending reminders, telling people how to do it, that's not enough. If we can automate that to make that easier for them, where all they have to do is show up and answer questions, that's much easier, and it's a win-win for everyone. Great solution. Those are the type of things we want to look for as designers. So this is sort of a summary of the snags that we covered today. And again, it's not our full audit checklist, it's just what I could squeeze into the time that they allotted. I'm happy to take questions, I'm happy to have a discussion around this. Like I said, we've never really talked too much about these things with actual designers. So I'm very curious to see the feedback you folks have, any suggestions you have, and I'm happy to continue this discussion. Are you able to read that back there? Probably not, right? I can. Were you going to ask a question? Or?
Yeah, I got a question.
Sure.
There's some work by Cass Sunstein on this sort of thing.
Sure.
Other references that you've found particularly useful for this? And how about, it sounds like most of this came out of your mind, correct?
So the question was, there's work by Cass Sunstein. Cass is a professor at Harvard, and have we looked at his work? All of the studies I quoted are from academics. So if anybody wants the sources there, feel free to come ask me after the talk. But Ideas 42's approach is to actually take academic research and be able to put that into the field. So we're constantly looking at, are there new studies, whether it's from Cass or anyone else. Cass is actually an affiliate of ours. So we're constantly looking at what's out there from the behavioral science, from academia, and how can we apply that to the real world. This is sort of our first evolving methodology, if you will. We're constantly sort of integrating new insights into that.
So I come from communications in nonprofits, and one challenge that we have is that everybody wants to do what the Obama campaign did,
Yeah.
even if they're, you know, an 8-person nonprofit and they have a tiny list.
Sure.
And clearly what's going to work for the 8-person nonprofit with the tiny list is not what worked for the Obama campaign,
Sure.
but everybody wants to do what the Obama campaign did because it worked. And so, you know, you're talking about like applying academic studies. How do you think about when you need to tweak those academic studies and when you need to maybe talk to users or adjust the methodology to account for different circumstances?
Good question. Okay, so the question was, how do we sort of account for the applicability of a particular study in different contexts? Our approach, you know, at its core, we understand that everything I went over today is going to be applicable to every problem. So as we work with partners, we're constantly trying to assess the context. We're trying to see if this one solution in one problem will actually work in this other problem. Sometimes it doesn't. And so it requires us to get on the ground, to understand the folks we're working with, who are their customers, all that sort of stuff. So that's part of our process. But the bottom line is not everything's going to work in different contexts. Yeah, that's a question.
Yeah, so is there like a metrics step in your process where you're like reflecting back and then maybe, you know, adjusting from there on, or?
Absolutely. So with this is more or less a checklist just for you folks to take with you. But when Ideas 42, you know, when we approach this from a consulting standpoint and we engage in our behavioral mapping methodology, we come in with certain hypotheses and then we're going to go to test those. So we'll start off with sort of a small group in how we test. We might do some qualitative research, understand what's really going on the ground. As we get some confidence as to whether or not it will actually work, then we'll decide what we'll run with. And at that point, we run a randomized controlled trial, which is what some designers will be familiar with as an A/B test. So we'll effectively have a control group where somebody's not receiving the new product or service, and then a treatment group where somebody who's receiving the new product or service. We'll test the both, and then that will kind of show us if it has an impact or not. Yes?
You talked about not all messages getting received. Do you have any rules to talk about the frequency? Or do you test it on a case-by-case basis?
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
You talked about not all messages getting received. Do you have any rules of thumb to begin with for frequency of messaging? Or do you test it case-by-case?
Good. So the question is, do we have a rule of thumb for frequency of messaging? No, we don't. I'd love to figure that out. Or if you can figure out, I'd love for you to tell me. We don't. I think it's case by case at the moment. It'll depend on who you're working with and who the end user is for the most part. Different folks communicate in different ways. To go back to Tinder, I find that like the girls in Manhattan want to stay on text, and then the girls in the outer boroughs will often want to get on the phone right away. Like they don't want to text. And so it's interesting to me. Like within 2 minutes of conversation, it's like, can we just get on the phone and talk? I've never gotten that from a girl in Manhattan, ever. So like people in different areas will communicate in different ways. And from Ideas 42 perspective, we're always trying to understand the context, what's going on here, and that will dictate different solutions.
To follow on the question about receipt of messages. So most of the examples that you've given are dealing with physical communications letters, basically.
Sure.
So when you deal with electronic communications, the delivery rate is 100%. But then there is the open rates, which drops dramatically depending on the communications. Depending on the industry, it goes anywhere from like 20% all the way to maybe like 40, 60. So how do you get people to actually read the email other than putting "Hey" as the subject line, which is completely cryptic, when you actually need to deliver something important?
Correct. So the question is, how do we get folks to sort of what else can we do when it comes to emails aside from adjusting the subject header, correct?
Yeah.
I haven't had any cases where I'm actually looking at getting folks to open emails. We're tracking that metric per se. We will go one level lower to see if there was an action we're asking and then track that. When it comes to opening emails, the one thing I would be cognizant of is timing. So that's one thing we talked about a bit. When are you sending it? Are you sending it during a time when they're receiving an influx of emails? Are you sending it during a time late at night when they might be checking the email. But it sort of speaks to understanding your end user and what their behavior patterns are. If you have some insight to that, it might give you a better idea on how you might target something. Does that help?
So you said that when you find some of these techniques, you actually test them yourselves. And then you also said that between different demographic groups, there might be different responses. In looking at different demographic groups, what would you classify them differently as? Like what criteria do you usually use?
I see. That's going to range completely from project to project, right? We might be looking at income as a classification. We might be segmenting out by gender, by age. So many things that we can look at. If we're looking at a consumer finance project, we might be looking at folks that have opened an account or haven't opened an account. So it really depends on the context.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting because in the example you mentioned, groups and seeing if technique A works better on one group that receives the treatment and one group that doesn't. I assume that both populations are randomized.
Yes.
So if you're going to have I guess, two groups with one different factor, like I'm wondering how you, I guess, perform that particular statistical analysis.
I see.
You guys here in the back of the questions? Okay, we've got some notes. If you wouldn't mind repeating them as well.
Yeah, it was a mouthful.
Would you not mind repeating it as well?
All right. I guess he mentioned having two technique and testing a different technique. There might be he tests against two demographics or I guess two groups, one that has the treatment and one that doesn't. But as he said before, different groups may respond to different techniques in different ways. So in that situation, how would you test that if you're not going to completely randomize it, but have to, I guess, account for those differences in demographics? Is that okay?
Correct.
They did it.
Sorry?
They heard it.
Okay. I'm not sure there's a short, concise answer for this.
It wasn't a short, concise question.
Yeah. We do have folks that sort of specialize in the testing and evaluation portion of doing this, and there are statistical methods to tease these things out. I'm not involved in that most of the time. My focus is usually on the diagnosis and design portions, but there are methods to actually tease these things out. Sorry?
Would you post an answer?
Yeah, we can definitely follow up with
Yeah,
that. That's
that would
helpful.
be nice.
Okay. Right here, and then after that, go ahead.
I'm just curious because you mentioned the Obama campaign email and the key subject, right?
Yeah.
So is it true that, I mean, you mentioned it really work when you have only one firm doing offer connections, right? I mean, what if everybody starts sending A emails, right? I mean, then I can intervention or something else, right? So, what like means of people becomes works only when it's kind of like checking water and what if everybody starts spreading on person?
So the question is, when we take the case of the Obama campaign and the hate email, what happens if everybody else starts doing that? Does that change the effect? Probably does. But the takeaway with that case wasn't that we should all write hey in our email. It was that there was something personal about this. There was something that was intriguing that you didn't actually know what the email was about. And that's probably what led to the opening of more emails, right? So, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say it's a common problem with email marketing, novelty effect, right? That some tests will only work because of that. It's something that we've struggled with as well. But I think a lot of his other points, it's hard to sometimes separate which ones are novelty effects and which ones are truly generalizable. Like the personalization has carried across multiple tests and with repetition. But some like, hey, no, that's probably more now.
What if every email starts getting a photograph of a family? Like, you have these personal photographs. Right?
Yeah.
And you make every communication like that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Then I would anticipate if everybody's doing everything like this, the effect would wear off.
But if you do defaults, the effect of defaults are unlikely to wear off. The effects of choice architecture, the effects of things that better timing are unlikely to wear off, right? So it depends on your particular audience and how fundamental is this change. But it's a big open question in email marketing and one that there isn't a clear answer.
And then the final thing I would say to that too is the takeaway is still that we want it to be personable. The effect is wearing off. It's because you start seeing everyone doing it and you realize this isn't authentic.
Yeah,
They're all doing it.
Or the example would be LinkedIn, where you use photos of your actual friends, and then, oh, these are people I know, and then pulls you back in.
Correct.
So as soon as it loses effect, you want to be able to get back to
Correct.
the person's
Correct. The takeaway is still there at the higher level, but yes, it will wear off.
I've got a good example on this.
Sure, sure.
So there's this book called Game. The game. Oh yeah, there's the book called The Game about pickup artists. So I'm gonna distill one simple a lesson from there. So the premise of the book that there is a colony of literally a colony of pickup artists living in one house in LA, and they're all hanging out in the same district, and they're learning how to meet women. So in the end of the book, what the author talks about is the fact that everybody used the exact same pickup lines, to the point that all the women in the immediate couple of neighborhoods stopped responding to them because they knew exactly what was going to happen. So if you actually do copy the method verbatim, the effect is going to wear out.
Dating is not a normal theme of the actual
Sorry.
Trying to establish that. Yeah.
But Tinder, oh yeah.
They're going for personability. Yeah. That was real. It's authentic. Really very do that next time.
Actually, it's like the first for pleasure.
Yes. Valentine's Day's coming up. Trying to help out. Okay. Was there another question in the back there?
It was really linked to that. It was about how do you make authentic personal connections from very, very large entities that
Sure,
people
correct.
don't immediately have that personal
And the short answer is we have to keep working on it. You know, you just have to keep, it's not like, a lot of these cases just aren't going to work next year. They're not. And so we have to stay on the ball. We have to keep thinking about how do we bridge those relationships and how do we still come across as authentic in those cases. Right?
Do you have audits for other things besides communications?
Yes. So the question is, do we have audits for other things besides communications? Our framework has audits for everything from physical environment, communications to the actual product, those sort of things. This is the first one that we've rolled out to sort of the public in general, but we have frameworks for many different things when it comes to audit.
I'm Matt. I have a question about sort of, when talking about sort of these authenticity issues or personalizing things, should I come out here? Sorry. When talking about sort of the authenticity or the personalizing of communication, how does that intersect when you have highly, highly personal or private information? So finances, medical histories, anything else that people might not want to have a sense of another person in the communication?
Question. So the question is when we consider the goal or the objective of trying to be personable, will that backfire if we're dealing with personal finances? At a high level, I imagine it's possible. I don't know. It will depend a lot on the context, who you're working with, those sort of things. We've done a project in the past around foreclosures. So this was actually the case I was supposed to open up with and talk to you folks about, but then my boss didn't want to come up here and do the intro, so I was trying to get back at him by talking about Tinder. Anyway, so, but the case was effectively like after 2008, you had a lot of foreclosures, right? This is not good for the economy, it's not good for society. If your neighbor's house forecloses, it's bad for you, brings down values, all that sort of thing. So we got involved in how can we prevent foreclosures, or how can we sort of help the situation? And one of the prongs of our behavioral approach was sort of personalization. You can imagine like foreclosures is actually, I mean, that's probably one of the most embarrassing or painful things that you might have to ever deal with. But even in that context, when we personalized it, the way we did that was that we would assign certain counselors. So you have a one-on-one, you have a relationship with someone, they call you, you know their name, you meet with them in person, and that tended to work well. I wouldn't extrapolate from that that would always work in every situation, but even in that situation where you take something that's painful with people, the personalization did help. But it's a fine line to walk. Like, you know, you take Facebook, like I have everything on there, my whole life's on there, but the minute I feel like they know a little too much, like, Facebook, right? Like everybody has concerns around privacy when it comes to Facebook, yet we still continue to use it. So it's a fine line. It's hard to really understand the context, and you have to understand the context of each of these problems.
We do maybe 3 more?
3 more, go ahead.
This is a question more on the evaluation and testing side of things, but I'm curious, you talked about how part of your model is developing different interventions and then doing RCTs to kind of see which ones work best. I'm wondering, do you work with situations where randomization is difficult or impossible, or particularly in sort of the information and communications realm, where restricting access to certain kinds of communication or information is difficult and impossible, and what sort of strategies do you use when RCTs, for whatever reason, are not feasible?
So the question is, like our approach, we're using RCTs. So we encounter situations where randomization isn't possible, or where we just can't execute the test all the time. Like particularly in the proposal phase, we're looking at, will the sample size be large enough? Can we actually run an RCT? So it's a big part of our process. We can't get the ideal scenario all the time. Sometimes we won't move into a project if we don't think we can run an RCT the way it should be run.
Okay, so that was really my question, was if an RCT can't be done, do you just not take on the project?
Sometimes it'll depend. It'll depend. If we feel like we can still have impact and we believe confidently in that, we might find a way to do it where it works, but it's a give and take. There's nothing, I don't have like a set criteria to tell you that if it doesn't mean exactly this, it's always kind of depends on the situation and what's going on. Okay, I think we had that one and then that one.
Do you have any insight into effective practices for things that are informational or content distributing emails, things like newsletters for organizations, subscriptions to publication content, things where the sort of the target behavior or the goal isn't sort of transactional, but might be to sustain readership or increase clicks, things like that.
Okay. So let me make sure I understand this. The goal is to sustain readership or increase clicks?
Well, to get people to read your content.
Okay, so the end goal is just, I have this information and I want you to read it, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It might be lengthy. We haven't encountered a situation like that. Often the work that we're doing has sort of more a goal around take-up. I can't think of a project where the objective was just strictly informational. I think to that end, often we're dealing with folks that think information is enough. If we just give them all this information, they'll take the course of action that we need them to. So that's where we do come in and we say information isn't enough. Right? And a lot of the examples we talked about today substantiate that. But I guess in your frame, I'm thinking more that this might be some sort of news or media type of thing, or you just want to see if everybody can read. I can't say that we've worked on anything on that, so I don't have any sort of insight about how to best do that.
I was just wondering how early designers and UX and visual designers come into your process when you're developing on a project.
Good question. So the question is, how early do designers come into the process? In Ideas 42, we don't have designers per se. So everyone's a generalist. The design portion from a behavioral science perspective falls on the responsibility of everyone. So the first step we're trying to do is really understand the problem. So our first step is define. Then we move into diagnosis. So then we start to try and look at things from a behavioral perspective. After that, after we get a hypothesis around what might be going on, that's when we start to design new ideas or new interventions. So that's really where the design comes in per se. But in terms of engaging actual designers, like from a graphic design standpoint or usability or those sort of things, we don't account for that in our process in the time being. Sometimes we'll work with folks on the partner end to handle that, but within Ideas 42, we actually don't have anybody that plays those roles. Final question? Yes.
Any perspective on long-form sales pages and their effectiveness versus other types of engagement?
Long-form sales pages?
Yeah.
I don't know what those are.
So this would be trying to sell a course or a book or something where you're providing you're basically providing all the information required to make a purchase decision.
Oh, I see, okay.
Groupon,
Sorry?
like Groupon does.
Would you consider Groupon? It
No.
seems like it's
Even
a little
longer than
short,
It'd be
yeah.
longer than that, right? A lot of copy, video. I mean, it doesn't sound like you
Almost
guys
like the
have
WWF or the Wildlife Federation.
Sure. Yeah.
I get like 4 pages from them. I never read them.
Yeah. Okay.
There is a community of believers that say long form sales pages convert at a much
Really?
higher rate than.
We should do an event with them. Like, yeah, I mean, my immediate reaction is that's not a good idea, but I mean, I'd be curious to test it. The thing that comes to mind was the IRS example, right? Where that was 7 pages. It was just awful.
BJ Fogg at Stanford is a big proponent of long form sales pages.
Really?
You
I'm gonna
have to
look
test
into
what
that.
you're doing because a
Yeah.
lot of it depends on the content that you're giving them in that pitch.
Correct.
Probably the biggest factor that I've seen of every single test we've run is on a long form, you need one call to action, period. Just like you said with the what's my next step, you look through these 7 pages, you have no idea what your next step is.
Correct.
You need one call to action. You can have a long form call, or you can have a long form page, but you better have one and only one call to action. It might be buy now, it might be sign up with your email, it might be one of these other things, but it better not be go check out this other content over here and then hopefully you'll sign up later.
Yeah.
It's do one of these things right now, and it's you say it 12 times on the page, and that's it. That is by far the largest factor I've seen between long form versus short form. And the reason short form becomes so easy is because you only usually have one call to action. If your page fits in just the above the fold, odds are you're only going to have one call to action, maybe 2 in there. You probably shouldn't have that second. But it really comes down to unifying your call to action. What's the next step you want the person to take? Make sure it's going.
Sure. Excellent.
I think it matters too. If you're asking someone to say like sign up for something, give me your email address versus give me your credit card number, I think that factors in as well. I think that's one of the push for long form is the conversion is actually a transaction as opposed to just a sharing of information.
Yeah. I definitely think it depends on the context and what you're putting in there too.
It depends on the content. So I've seen tests where putting additional social proof or testimonial information is quite valuable, as long as it's below the fold, and so you allow the person to take action very quickly. But yeah, there's a huge debate in the field over that, in the email marketing field.
Okay,
All right.
that's it. We're done.
Will you be around later?
I will be around. I think
Okay.
we can hang out for half an hour.
Okay, cool. So we, as you guys know, we like to keep it strictly to an hour, respect everybody's time for the main presentation. And we also want to make sure that there's time for community announcements, etc. So at this point, I want to do first one big thank you to Include for hosting us here. This has been our It's been our home for, I think, the last 6 months. Really been a very welcoming, wonderful space. Do you want to say a little bit about Include?
Yeah, Include is a digital creative agency. We do awesome, badass sites and apps. If anybody's in need of one, you can find me.
They did work for us.
That too, yep. And also, we always love our community. We love to help. We love to show off our space as well as like let people feel it. We have events at least once a week usually. And honestly, we love the innovation that usually stems from it. So I'll be here. Just find me if you want to chat about it.
Thank you. I also wanted to thank Chris again. As I said in the beginning, this is the largest collection of behavioral economists we know of that are practicing and applying this in the field. And what you find is that you deal with a lot of nitty-gritty details. The details matter. We've had speakers here who've talked about broad theoretical principles. We did a BJ Fogg session where we talked about the B equals MAT model, etc. We've had researchers come in and talk about very particular studies, say on the font used in marketing materials and how that maybe jives with or doesn't jive with content of what you're asking the person to do. Very few people are touching so many aspects of a behavior. So many aspects of a person's life, from, you mentioned some of the examples, some of the projects they work on healthcare, etc. And so when you get down to it, the details really matter. And so this talk was different than many of our other ones, because it was so focused on, all right, let's talk about the timing. Let's talk about that subject line. Let's talk about how to make it personal. And I'm personally quite glad for that, because you sometimes get inspired by the broad theoretical framework, but you don't know how to actually use it and what to do with it. So I'm very glad to see practitioners taking the behavioral econ research from academia out into the real world and seeing what works and what doesn't, and finding that, yeah, some things don't port and some things do. So thank you. I personally find it very, very interesting myself. Now it's time for announcements from the community. We have some from Action Design, but I'll hold off that for a second. I want to see events coming up. Or actually, how about job openings first? Sir?
I'm at Web First, and we're currently looking for Symfony and/or .NET developers. So if anybody's here or knows anybody that's looking for work in those specialties, let me know.
Okay. Other job openings? Yes.
We have a web developer opening in PHP and JavaScript, front-end development,
I heard some of those words, PHP, JavaScript.
PHP, JavaScript, web developer at a progressive think tanky economic policy institute.
Okay. Sir?
I work for Foresight Studios. We're a digital creative agency, and we're hiring a project manager, designer, and developer.
Job openings, yes.
The consumer marketing team at OPower is hiring a consumer marketing analyst, kind of like a campaign coordinator for small marketing.
We love OPower. We had Dina Rosen, who's now in San Francisco, present before. A wonderful group. One of the few groups who are really applying this in the field and getting tremendous success, both from a business and a behavior change, beneficial behavior change perspective. Other openings? Cool. Events. Oh, actually, on job openings,
The topic of job openings, I know you're all getting tired of hearing me say this, but we do have a job board now on actiondesigner.net. So whether you're looking, if you're looking, check it out. If you have a listing, please email us at addc@actiondesigner.net, or just email Steve here and he'll forward it to me.
Yeah, either one. Action Design DC, ADDC. That is our short version and play off the. What's that?
ADDC?
ADDC, yes, and play off of the group, of course. Other community events? Events coming up?
Oh, I have one.
Sir?
In addition to being an include, I'm also the president of Add2DC, which is part of the American Advertising Federation. We have a tips and tricks on personal branding. It's actually next Wednesday. It's in Georgetown. You can find it on it's actually on the DC Ad Club website. It's 6:30 to 8:30 next Wednesday.
Wonderful. Okay. Quick update about other community events. Cool. Quick update about Action Design. We have just incorporated, more correctly filed for incorporation as a nonprofit. Okay. Because we've had so many great volunteers recently join. As I think I mentioned to you guys, I was ready to call it quits in October, but I put out the call to this group, and we had Daniel and Justin and Abby and Danielle, and now we have Andrew, and we've got other people who are getting involved in this group. And so now we have a forum for people to get involved more overall. And if you have other ideas, the group is really for everybody. It's not my show, it's not anyone's show. It's what would you like to do? What speakers do you want to have come in? What events do you want to run? It looks like we may be picking up the conference because we might have enough people now to organize that again. No other conference like it in the US, right? Looking at beneficial behavior change in technology. If you have other ideas, right? I would love to have you guys get involved. It's no money, but it's a lot of fun. So we do have a next event coming up. Daniel?
Yeah, so we don't have a big event next month. A lot of people are going to be at South by Southwest, but we are going to host a small group discussion. The target date is March 1st. We'll put it up on the Meetup group. The topic of that discussion is going to be financial services. It's something near and dear to my heart, and I know it's something a lot of people have struggled with. So the frame of it that we're going to start with is failures in financial services. So come willing to share something that either you've struggled with or somebody you know, and we'll sort of use that as a jumping off point to discuss behavioral approaches to changing financial services behavior. Also, we will talk a lot about technology.
And you'll notice March 1st is a Saturday. We're doing something different. He had the idea, all right, let's try it out. So instead of doing a large group like this, we're going to do a smaller group where we can talk and really dig into the details on a weekend. What time were you thinking?
In the afternoon.
Afternoon. All right, cool. And so we'll announce more of that.
How many people fall through?
It's a good question. Depends on the space.
Depending on the space, but we're targeting around 20 people, and it'll be in the afternoon, so you have time to go have brunch or whatever it is you do on Saturday morning. And then you want to turn on your brain Saturday afternoon and you have time, come on by.
Right. And our previous small group discussions have usually filled up in about 3 minutes from when we post it. So we'll see. Anything else I'm forgetting, Action Design folks? Yeah.
2 very small housekeeping things. One, if anyone wants to write a quick blog post about tonight, summarizing thoughts relating it to your own project, write it, shoot us an email. We'll provide a link back to your blog, your website, wherever it's housed. And 2, and probably the least interesting announcement of the evening, please, as you're heading out, just take your trash with you. Include's really nice in hosting us, and let's leave it clean for them and not make me do it all. So, thanks.
Last time, Ted from Kaiser, Ted Aton from Kaiser did a blog post. It was great, summarized what we were doing, and we promote their blog. Whoever writes about us, we are happy to promote using our list so we can spread the word about what you're doing. You have another announcement? We're almost done.
I just wanted to throw out that we have beer on tap.
Oh, and we have some extra food. So with that, eat, drink, be merry. Thank you all.